Now that you mentioned lessons, Gary, what do you think is the main lesson in nowadays that we could learn from all this story of an impresario, a Mexican coming in the early 1800s to found a colony in a territory which belonged first to the New Spain, and then became an independent state, Texas, and then was annexed to the U.S. What do you think are the main lessons for people now to learn about Martin de Leon, about the whole story of Victoria?
Well, I know that this should have dawned on me 50 years ago, but it's only snapped into focus within really the last 8 or 10 years in doing this research, and that is that Anglos tend to judge Mexican and Spanish by their own, we look and judge according to a view from the East, and we haven't had the proper respect for a culture that was very different from ours. And it's only in understanding that and learning to respect that we learn to coexist and celebrate what actually happened here, the real history of this area. We shouldn't judge the actions of the people who were Spanish and the way, their religious beliefs, everything, and look at that and say, well, that's wrong. You ought to be thinking the way I think. Yeah. It's I've come more and more to be aware of how restrictive my view has been of this and how wrong I've been in looking at it.
I guess, when I first read about the story, about the book in the Cream book, I learned so many things that are just amazing about the story. That it could be like a novel, really, but many of the things are real facts. We want to talk about the facts, but now that you're mentioning, you're bringing this up about two cultures, the American, the Mexican, coming together. I think this is a good example, as you said, of how we should be able to embrace each cultures. And Mexico and the United States are linked by, they share a border, they share history, and from what we learned in the De Leon's stories, that in the early 1800s, they were, when they settled Victoria, they were open to embracing the Europeans, the Anglos that came to settle. And then when Texas became, when they struggled for the independence, I guess it was a fair cause, for the Anglos to fight. Even Martin de Leon's sons, I understand they were supportive about the Texas independence. Is that right? Martin de Leon, the way I understand, was hesitant about whether to support the Texas Revolution or remain being loyal to Mexico, which was a newly independent country. I guess for Martin de Leon, this should have been quite a difficult decision to make, whether to remain being loyal to a newly independent country or to support the revolution, the Texas Revolution. We know he died in 1833,
4.
1834. What do we know about the facts? I mean, of Martín de León being supportive of the revolutionary movement. Do we know he actually supported the movement, or he remained just out of the political scene? We know maybe some of their sons were active, like Silvestre, Plácido Benavides. They participated in the revolution, but we're not certain about Martín de León. Do you, Dr. Schuch, do you think he was supportive? What do we know about?
Well, that's the crux of the potential here. Historians who sit at a level considerably above, so to speak, the local level, and there are a number of excellent recent historians, can deal with theories of interaction, culture. The job at the local level is to put those theories to test in the test tube. Theory, proof, theory, proof. And there's no question that Martín de León was converted to republicanism. And there's no question that his sons and sons-in-law were sympathetic. But this sympathy has been largely misunderstood. The alliance or the coalition between the de León family and the cause, let's say, was a cause defined differently. To be an independent state within the Republic of Mexico is one way to define independence. And as long as the common purpose was to make Texas independent of Coahuila and become an independent state in the United States of Mexico, that's one thing. That cements different cultures. If, however, as was the case, Anglos move in the direction of seceding, leaving Mexico to become an independent state, totally independent, no longer a part of the Republic of Mexico, that is a problem. It will cause the cement to give way. And the great irony is that the de León family, which was cemented, as were many other families, Zavalas, Navarro families, had to give way because there was no sympathy for an independent Texas outside of Mexico. And that may seem like an easy thing to understand, but it is not, because we've been woefully inadequate in our school system to be able to point out what might seem to be just details, but in the detail is the truth and the value.